Hello world, this is Shruti Pandey, and today on itishruti we have with us Mikhil Innani, who is the MD CEO of Apollo Finvest, and we are going to learn so much about his entrepreneurial journey. Oh my goodness. Because not has he seen many products, he has created many startups, and I am so excited to learn about his journey and career that he has built for himself. So thank you so much, Mikhil, for giving me your time on a Saturday morning slash afternoon. It means a lot.
Mhm. I'm happy to be here. I think very interested to see the kind of questions you have for me and see how this conversation goes.
Absolutely. I hope everything is going well with you and the company, given the fact there is so much of turmoil and instability in the world. So just checking on you. I hope everything is going well.
Yeah, I can't complain. I mean, I'm blessed. Basically, we have a great team. So, no matter basically what's going on in the world, I think, as long as you have a great team to, help basically, navigate all the different waters and cycles which you kind of go across, I think that's how I think about everything, right? It's just a cycle, whether it's up or down. You just have to be basically very zen about it.
Oh yeah. I mean, I have started to get another level of respect for genuine people in the current time, because I definitely understand it's not easy, right? It's not easy. So let me get started with with the questions I've created for you. And it was so amazing to, see your entire story with respect to how it has come out on your LinkedIn or I mean, I was trying to basically research about you, right? I can't say I was stalking you because I wasn't. So I see that you worked for three great companies before creating PharmEasy, right? So I want to understand, like, what made you create PharmEasy? Like, what was the thought process about it?
Yeah, I mean, very honestly, PharmEasy was a culmination of a bunch of things, right? Essentially, I think one is I think, a couple of factors which, were very, very clear. One was, when I went to CMU for my education, I was really surrounded by, really, really inspirational and amazing, colleagues over there, right? And honestly, like that's one place which totally changed my life. In fact, one of the people who basically inspired PharmEasy and was a very, very important factor in us starting PharmEasy was my roommate from CMU actually, because I was the first person actually from a batch to come back to India and start building in the startup world. But he was, I think, a close second. And once he came back, he actually started building something in the pharma distribution space, right? And at that point in time, I was heading product at a company called Coupon Dunia. And once that company got acquired by Times Internet, I was thinking about what's next, really. And that's when we basically began, chatting about what else we could potentially do in the medical world, right? And obviously, I think that's something which has always been very, very interesting to me about how can you use technology to create something which is a lot more accessible, essentially, to a lot more people, right? Affordable, accessible in different ways. And I think in many places, I think around the world, technology is a luxury. But I think in a place like India, the way I think about technology is it's a necessity, because if there are very, very limited countries in the world, which have a unique positioning and the diversity that India has when it comes to basically economies within the country, right? So I think truly technology is something which is the great equalizer when it comes to people trying to get access to things like healthcare, education, entertainment, now financial services. But that's why it attracted me towards building something like PharmEasy.
Oh man, and look at what you have created, right? I mean, every time I see an advertisement of it also, like it has come really a very long way. And I have two follow-up questions to this, which I am more interested in, because one thing is about, creation and building, and you have that passion for creating stuff. which I totally understand. But there are two aspects to it, right? I mean, after PharmEasy, when you decided to leave and go to another thing, you went there as a product person, right? You went for heading product for Hotstar. So I really have two follow-up questions about this because it's so intriguing to me. You created something from scratch. Most people have seen, they get their ego attached to it. They start to see things as their baby, and they are like, okay, hum to nahi chhodne wale isko and stuff like that. So how easy or difficult it is for you as a founder to create something from scratch, leave it, go to some other place. And the second part of this question is, when you're going to some other place, you're going as a product guy for Hotstar, like, dude, what were you thinking? I'm sorry, but I really have to ask you, what
Yeah.
were you thinking?
No, no, absolutely. So number one, it was very, very difficult, right? Like it is true, right? Like when you create a company, it is like a baby to you. I think it is, a lot of people say that, business isn't personal, but I think when you're creating a company, it's incredibly personal, right? Because it encapsulates your entire life, right? I think there is no other way to kind of, describe it. Honestly, the reason why I kind of decided to move from PharmEasy was fundamentally, I just thought about economics. One of the things which now I really, really understand well, but as a first time founder, you don't understand is, when you raise a lot of money, basically you end up diluting a lot of your stake. And, at some point in time, you start thinking whether the economics of this all is making sense for you, or is it making a lot more sense for, the other shareholders of the company, right? And really, that was the call, right? I think within a couple of years or so, we raised, I think, upwards of 200, $300 million. Obviously, led to a lot of, dilution within the company as well. And that's when I really started thinking, what really makes sense for me. Um, you know, and in regards to kind of going to Hotstar, very honestly, once you've done a company, right, like, and you built a company from scratch like this, I think it's very important to take a step back, right? Because one of the common threads I've seen with people is that they go from creating one company to creating another company without taking any kind of break in between. And at least to me, I think that's a huge mistake because it's a very emotionally trying time, right? And it's a lot of you put in your blood, sweat, and into something. You need a downtime, right? And very honestly, the way I thought about Hotstar was me just going there to do what I love, right? It was, like, I am a technologist at heart. I love building products. That's like, it was like a playground for me, to be very honest, right? I just went there and, it was like, my inner child, uh, going there and having a great time and coming back home. Frankly, that's how I think about Hotstar. It was like net practice basically for me, right? Going back and just, doing what I love, right? And I had a fantastic time doing that, right? I worked with some amazing people there. We went from like 7 million monthly active users to like 350 million monthly active users. We became, one of the largest platform, if not the largest platform in Asia, definitely the largest platform in India. The kind of technology, the scale that I got to experience there and build, it yet gives me goosebumps, right? Like we basically created an absolute monster. So I had a fabulous time. It was the perfect, I would say, rehab I needed, after doing my own company and, to recoup basically before doing my next company, which is, where Apollo happened. And there too, basically I wanted there to be like a, you know, I like to have a ending to all my stories. So with Hotstar, obviously the minute it got acquired by, the Mickey Mouse company, Disney, I felt like the time is right for me to kind of, let that basically part of my journey end, and it was in good hands. And starting something which again I could call my own.
So it's basically Disney is the culprit for you to move out of Hotstar. I'm just kidding, but it makes
Yeah.
sense, right? To have that calculated movement for yourself and risk. And I appreciate your honesty, right? Because it's been a while I've heard an answer of this sort where people are like, I needed some recoup, I needed some downtime, and this was the best thing. And trust me, as a technologist, when I look at the different products and companies that you were a part of, it's so interesting to see each one of them, because I think you were associated with all of them at an interesting time when you were building all of them, be it Coupon Dunya, be it PharmEasy, be it Apollo, be it Hotstar. So, I mean, literally, there are times, I'll tell you a funny thing. On LinkedIn, year after year, I sometimes just share, reshare, or copy paste the same post which I have for Hotstar, which is like, it's so amazing the number of engineers and system that is up in the place when a major global event happens and so many users are watching it live, and it never goes down. I mean, it's commendable what you guys have been able to achieve. So thank you, for sharing that story with so much honesty with me. And I want to understand now something about Apollo, because what were you again thinking while creating a company like this? I mean, I understand you moving out the whole Mickey Mouse stuff, but what made you think, okay, let's create something Apollo Finvest? And I also want to understand, you have a NBFC license for this company, right? And you help other corporates and businesses get things done. So why do you really have to call yourself as a AWS for lending? Like, why not call yourself for NBFC itself? Like, I'm sorry if that's a stupid question, but I really, really wanted to ask you.
No, it's a great question, right? I think, so the way I've always thought about things, right? I think, again, once basically kind of, I was done with my Hotstar journey, I really started thinking about what I wanted to do next, right? And I was very fortunate that with PharmEasy, I was able to create like affordable healthcare. With obviously, Hotstar, I was able to basically, basically make entertainment accessible anywhere, right? Whether you're on a train, bus, wherever. And I really started thinking, what are some other sectors basically where opportunity is ripe, right, to do something like this. And you know there were a couple of incidents which made me start thinking about financial services. So I think the first one was when I was at PharmEasy, we used to work with a lot of chemists. And these chemists used to make like 2 to 3 lakh rupees profit a month, which was like 10x the amount of profit which normal retailers basically make. And they used to yet struggle to get working capital loan from traditional lenders, right? Um, Similarly, at Hotstar, even when we had 350 million monthly active users at that point in time, we only had like a million paying subscribers, right? Which is abysmal, right? Like it's like 0.3%, 0.4% of your entire base is paying you. And not because they didn't want to pay, by the way, but just because there was like a lack of instrument to pay, just because there are no, such a low penetration of credit cards in India, right? And I started discussing this with, my my now co-founder and wife, Diksha. She was in HDFC at that point in time. That what is this? Like why isn't basically this being solved or looked at or things like that, right? And her answer to me was very simple. She was like, there is a reason why nobody from the traditional world is going to solve this problem, because they're very happy and content basically focusing on the 100 million users in India, and the remaining 900 million people, they all want loans which are very, very small in ticket size, essentially. And the cost of actually giving out these loans doesn't make sense, right? Because all of these traditional lenders, they have branches, they have people, they have manual processes. So that cannot change. So as an example, the cost of giving out a loan for a traditional lender is, anywhere between 3,000 to 5,000 rupees, right? So, I always tell people this story, right? And I tell all my employees, by the way, this, right? You should go to, if you have an account with HDFC or ICICI, which may be having, if it has even 50,000 rupees inside it, just go there and ask them for a 5,000 rupee loan, right? They will not give it to you, right? Which is super silly, right? Because it's absolutely risk free for them. They could literally just, underwrite your 50,000 rupees which you have in your bank account and give you a 5,000 rupee loan, but they won't, because the cost of processing a loan for them is that much. So that's when I started thinking, uh, what do we do basically to eradicate this problem, right? Of basically it's a problem of financial inclusion, right? Like, and one of the things I kind of realized at PharmEasy is, the opportunity is there in India to go to the next level. It's almost like, my learning basically about the financial services space was like, it's very unique, because in startups are always accused, right, in India, of building something for, as if copying ideas from the US, right? Like, as if everybody's in the US and, we're building the exact same thing over here. But in the financial services space, it's exactly opposite, right?
Right.
Where traditional guys are actually building for, you could call it the US of India, right? Essentially, of people of a certain bracket who are, I would say, India and not Bharat. And it's actually the fintechs who are actually trying to focus on Bharat and solving for financial inclusion, right? Which is very unique, right? And I started thinking that what is my strength as a founder, right? My strength as a founder is I'm not a finance guy, but I'm really great at building scalable software, right?
Right.
So we had an NBFC with us as right. Like the reality is, my dad started this NBFC in the 1980s, and in the 1990s he got it listed, and it was there in our backyard, right? And I started talking along with Iksha to a bunch of fintechs and asking them that this opportunity is monstrously large, right? What is stopping you from really going after this and chasing this, right? And their answer was simple, like they were like, listen, you're preaching to the choir. Everybody knows this is a massive opportunity, but all of the traditional lenders, right, they don't have software. They don't want to work with us because they don't want to innovate. They just basically want to continue serving that 100 million audience because that's the profitable layer. Everything else, right, it requires basically uh, complete digitization. That's the only way it will work, right? And by the way, the only problem which is there to solve this, to solve financial for 900 million people is just two things. One is the cost of transactions have to become zero,
Hmm.
right? And second, the cost of customer acquisition has to become zero. Now, for that, we devised a strategy which was very simple, right? Number one, cost of customer acquisition could easily become zero because if you partner with all of these digital platforms, like a Hotstar as an example, who have access to like 300, 400 million monthly active users,
Right.
you have no cost of customer acquisition, right? They
Right.
could become hubs by which you can distribute financial services. So that's point number one. Now, point number two, how do you make the cost of transaction zero? Now, thanks to, you know, basically the following vectors which happened inside India, the idea of Apollo Finvest became, actually possible, right? Number one was UPI, number two was eKYC, and number three was Geo, right?
Oh,
These three things made the idea of Apollo into not something which is on paper, but actually executable, right?
yeah.
So, every idea has every idea has to be done at the right time, right? In history, you can't execute an idea before the fundamentals are there for it, right?
Right.
So these two theories combining is what made Apollo Finvest basically the right time to go after this opportunity. And ever since then, we've seen like good success on this kind of theory.
Dude, I'm so sorry. I'm keep calling you dude. I don't know why, but I mean, I have seen your posts on LinkedIn, right? I mean, we have been connected there, and I always respected what you wrote there. But this particular segment, this particular answer that you have given, I mean, it just blew my mind at so many times and at so many places because it was like, gunfire shot and something like that. It's so awesome. And I respect it because, the entire thing of uh, total cost of transaction or acquisition of customer, I think all of these make sense because these are the actual whys when people start looking into the operations of anything, right? It's like, okay, TK, I got a problem and I started building something, but I sometimes feel people just create a problem for the heck of it or a solution for a heck of it, and then they start finding a problem. I love it that you have a partner who was at HDFC and you understood that side of story. You understood your own journey with respect to the different products you were a part of, and you also saw your father's NBFC coming in from the early 80s. I mean, you are literally a human AI who was collecting data, experience after experience to make this happen. I mean, I'm so impressed by you right now because I was literally thinking why I call it something like AWS for lending. And I also hate this fact, right? Like, why do we always have to have this westernized influence on us when we are actually somebody who also can create something original? And I love the fact that you also gave credit to KYC and UPI. But more importantly, I also felt happy when you said Geo because I think, as a matter of fact, had it not been for Geo, all of us who survived the pandemic sitting remotely at our homes, it wouldn't have been possible. Like getting internet as an electricity or a water supply. I think Jio made that happen for all of us, really. So I really appreciate that you thanked all three of them, because I think I appreciate your, struggle of seeing and looking at a problem and wanting to go out there, creating a solution for it. But you also realize there has to be a timing, there has to be a base, there has to be that fundamentals which is in place. Otherwise, it's a even bigger fight for you, right? मतलब मैं नेट भी बनाते बैठूं, मैं ये भी बनाते बैठूं, कितना कुछ करोगे तुम? So dude, you are something else, seriously. Thank you so much. That answer was, I mean, I need to stop now. Let me hear from the horse's mouth, but really, wow.
Thank you so much.
If I can ask you this, and you can ask me to skip because it's a personal question. Like, does it ever become difficult when you have a partner who is also not just the partner but also the co-founder of a company? Like, does it get difficult sometimes there also? Like, how do you maintain that?
No, no, it's a great question, right? Like, very honestly, I'll tell you, you know, I always look at, to me, basically, in fact, I would tell you that that's my biggest strength of Apollo, you know,
Wow.
because basically what ends up happening, right, is like one of the biggest problem statements which are there inside a startup, right, is that, are founders on the same page, right? Do they have the same vision? Do they want the same things out of the company? Um, you know, are they actually happy for each other's success? You know, a lot of these dynamics play out between founders, right? And also at the same point in time, people have to bring something different to the table, right? It truly has to be a yin and yang. Um, and people have to be able to contribute different things to make this whole thing work, right? So very honestly, the thing between, obviously, when me and Diksha work together, right, and we've been doing this for like almost 5+ years. I think initially, yes, it did take a lot of time for us to get used to this, right? Because very honestly, like at the start, in the first 2 to 3 years, right, inside any company, you're eating, breathing, sleeping the startup.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example, right? Like, this is unfortunately a true story, but literally we were, this is like, I guess, some 4 or 5 years back now, right, at the start of Apollo in many ways. And we had gone for a vacation in Paris, and we're on top of the Eiffel Tower, right, one of the most romantic places in the world. And I do the most unromantic thing in the world, which is basically, Diksha is admiring the view, and I start talking about work, right, because I get a call from a partner, and you know कि ऐसे से कर सकते कि नहीं, and I'm talking to her, and she's like, oh my god, like, you need to just chill, right? And these are a lot of incidents which have happened vice versa also, right, where at 12 o'clock in the night, at 11 o'clock in the night, at 3 o'clock in the night, we're waking up and we're talking about work, because it's non-stop, right? uh, so that was certainly something which we all had to get used to, where this happens. But the good thing is basically, once we got used to working with each other and realized that, we can't be this, right? We can't be this person who's 24/7 doing this, because honestly, it's not good for business, right? It means that, you and me will be burnt out. We have to take downtime so that we can actually give our 120% to Apollo. Once we are at work, we have to be in game mode. We can't basically be like, burnt out over there just because at home we are working, because our team needs to be inspired by us, right? They need to feel the energy from us. So that's when, once we kind of recognize that, after that, things got a lot better. And now it's amazing, because I have a partner who I trust 120%. I know what she wants out of the company is exactly what I want. There is a lot of there's a lot of beauty in having a partner which you can take to the bank, right? Like, I know, as an example, like, if she takes up something, it is going to get done. There's 1,000% dependability, there's 1,000% trust. And most importantly, things, so many times with founders, you can't say those things, because many people are going through different things in their life at different points in their life, right? Maybe when you start something, they may want something different. 5 years down the line, depending on their own personal situations, they want different things, right? Thankfully for us, our personal life also we want the same things, right? Like a year ago, when we had a child, um, you know, we now think very, very differently, right? We want different things out of, Apollo. We want different things out of a professional life. We know how to balance things.
Right.
Um, and it means that we always are in sync, right? Which is very, very critically important.
Yes, yes. If you feel or think that I'm good enough, I would love to host the two of you together. Like, oh my God, I can't even imagine how that conversation is going to be, because it would be like a power couple, conversation of learning and understanding. If you feel like, you can let me know, discuss it with Diksha, and I would really love to host the two of you together. Oh my God, I can't even imagine how that conversation would be, because literally I felt like asking you so many follow-up questions, but I was like, nee, hold on. Let's probably have it, if at all we decide to host the two of you together. Just have a thought about it and discuss, and let
Sure.
me, if you feel like it. But this is, oh gosh, Mikhil, you are so amazing. And I can't stop saying this, and I don't want to sound redundant, but really, I appreciate your honesty and genuineness, right? Because the entire chaos that has been going on with this entire global crisis, financial crisis, sometimes, I feel very scared, like, who should I be talking to? Because a lot of people, youngsters, our age, even elders, are looking and listening to people like you and trying to understand how you are doing stuff or how you're getting it done. So, um, thank you for being that genuine person who I can call and understand and learn things from, because this was a great, great Saturday morning for me. And if at all you feel like, Shruti, you didn't ask me these questions or something about, you can please have your time. This is your stage. And I also want you to include one thing, if at all, as parting thoughts, like people who are listening to us, who are listening to you, be it again freshers or middle age or elders, given the crisis and given the employee situation, if you would have any piece of advice for them, I think it would really help.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like I'll say what I tell, my team members as well, right? I would just say that, like I think the more and more I think about it is that, people today want things yesterday, right? I think it's the social media age, right, where we see, and including me sometimes, right? I see stuff on Twitter, I see something on LinkedIn, Instagram, all of this stuff, uh, it's basically making us feel that everybody has everything, when actually, it's just few people have few things, but us looking at everything together makes us feel everybody has everything, and that's why we feel left out and we want everything yesterday, and it makes us all very impatient, right? I think what we all should strive towards is truly, making sure that every day we learn something new. Every day, we are better version of ourselves than we were yesterday, right? And be on our own track, be on our own journey, right? I always tell people the same thing, that, if you are inside a company, right, where you have a good manager, the company is headed in the right direction, you have good team members, you feel you're learning, do not switch, right?
Right.
Uh, because a lot of people make these switches because they want better compensation, and sometimes basically when you do switch, you get that better compensation, but unfortunately you put a artificial ceiling in front of yourself, because next time you go, you may not have the better, you may not have the good manager, you may not have the good team members, you may not have a company which is headed in the right direction, right? And in which case basically it's a great temporary boost, but long term your career basically ends up stagnating, right?
Right.
Because whether we all like it or not, right, ultimately our resume is nothing but, you know um, it's a reflection of how we think,
Yeah.
right? Because you have to, like, the way I always think is that if you're a successful employee, right, in 70 years of your life, right, typically people work between the age of say 22 to 70. Realistically, you're going to not work in more than 10 companies in your career,
Mm-hmm.
right? Make everyone count, right? Make everyone count. Do your research. Do not just go and interview with people and let them choose you. You should choose them, right?
Yes. Yes.
Go and talk to your manager. Go and, like, reach out to other employees on LinkedIn of that company. Understand what's the work culture. Understand, how things are going in that company. Is it, what are the good things? What are the bad things? Know what you're getting into, right? It's just 10 companies or 7 to 10 companies that we work to, work in inside our entire life if we are successful. Of course, you can be one of those employees who end up having 20 companies on the resume, but then you should also know this, that if you are one of those employees who's switching, very, very quickly, it's very difficult for your manager to be able to give you important positions inside the company because they know they can't depend on you, right? So, it's important to know that if you're going to be working inside 10 companies inside your career, right, do a lot of due diligence, join companies, in a very conscious manner, right? Uh, don't just join because they want you to join, right? Respect yourself a lot more than that. It's your life, your career. You want the best of things. You deserve the best of things. Go out there and do the best work. Because you respect yourself, not because of your manager, not because of the company, just because you want to do great work because you value your brand and
Right,
that much.
right, absolutely. I mean, there's a slight part where I don't agree, but literally I felt like you were spilling my secret out. But I also was having this good feeling at the back of my head that at least I've done something right in my own career, right? The first 10 years that I was working as an employee, I saw to it that, sometimes my younger brother would say to me, "Oh my God, nobody gets a yes from this company XYZ, and you got a yes, you should definitely join it." But I think it's more about understanding, like, does this company align with me? I mean, yes, interviewing is fine if we get a call or we apply for something, but it's because, like you say that a company is everything for a founder. I think a company or a job is everything for an employee also. I mean, if you're a good one, a hardworking one, it's actually the same
Yeah,
way. And yes, I don't understand the whole point of frequent switches or something, but I mean, I feel like, yes, you should switch if you feel like, okay, my work is done here and I need to create something bigger and better. Like, that's how I've always seen. And I think you're absolutely right in saying that it's your own story and it shows what you were thinking at that point, because yeah, it's a reflection in some way or the other. But wow, man, I didn't expect that advice. I didn't expect that would be coming. But thank you so much. Thank you so much. It's been a wonderful, wonderful time talking to you, Mikhil. I really appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed it too.
absolutely, absolutely. I had a fun time, and I hope some of these things which I've said, help people in their decision making and thinking as well.
I hope so too. I hope so too. I hope you guys are listening to what we said. And if at all you feel like, okay, it's too much and doesn't apply to your case, you can take it with a pinch of salt. But I think it's good to start understanding, right, what things we have spoken of today. And I got a great insight in your mind, the
Mhm.
Khurafati mind that you have and how you plan things and you make things happen. So thank you so much.
Pleasure. Thank you for hosting me.
Thank you.